Igbos plant the seed and their enemies water what the Igbos plant. These were my thoughts after I was sent a horrible article which argued that Igbo means Igbos don't have kings. Did not mean that Igbos didn't have kings until the British imposed the caricatures called warrant chiefs on them. But that rather what it means was that Igbos did not tolerate autocrats. This lousy argument argued against itself because what was a king, especially in pre-modern times, supposed to be? Or what were kings before the pre-modern times? Autocrats. There was nowhere in the world where kings existed and they were not autocrats. But this fellow argued that when the Igbos say they don't have kings, or that they did not have kings, that what it meant or means was not that they did not really have kings, that they had, but that they were intolerant of autocrats. I mean, this argument is baseless and meaningless. I believe it was just put together to confuse the Igbo people, who are, by the way, suicidal. I will explain why I say that my own people are suicidal, because this post, as wrong as it is, as dangerous as it is, will attract 300 likes. They don't even know that it's dangerous, even when the danger is staring them in their faces. Even an imbecile should not have difficulties seeing that the culture, Omenana, which the Igbos practiced by the time the British came, did not support kingship. Unfortunately, the Igbos don't understand that to be a historian today, you have to have at least a PhD in a relevant discipline. Is it not? Did I not go through the regular schools, the gamut? I have a degree in law, I have a master's degree, and I have a PhD. I know what I'm talking about. To be a historian, to be able to look at events, examine them, and produce knowledge, you have to have at least a PhD in relevant disciplines. But what we see is every Tom, Dick, and Harry that can, on a social media account, has become an authority on, unfortunately, the Igbo history. And why do I say unfortunately? When a people don't know who they are, when they don't know their history, they continue making mistakes. And the Igbos are the only people in Nigeria who have persistently and consistently made costly mistakes. And they keep repeating these mistakes. Otherwise, why would an ethnic group take all its wealth and put them in the territories of people that are hostile? Abuja and Lagos are filled with Igbo properties. But what does law tell us? The common law. Quick plantata solo sedit. He who owns the land owns everything in the land. And people who are aware of their history, recent and past, will not be repeating these mistakes. And there are people bent on using Facebook to confuse the Igbo people. And the Igbos love those people. I put up corrective posts, they barely get 20 likes, but these people put up nonsense, and millions of Igbos love them and share them. I will do my best for the people, but I cannot force them from committing suicide. Even an imbecile should not have difficulty seeing that the culture before the British came did not support kingship. If Igbos had kings, they would have had prisons, armies, and regular police before the British came. My family is an Obi. My family is an Obi, a prominent one at that. My great-grandfather's name was Ezainezu, which means stand in the north, You will not see, standing in the north, west, and south, you will not see the extent of our family lands. But he had no prison, he had no police, he had no army. And if there was a king, he would have been a king. But without a police, without an army, without prisons, without even a palace, how can he subject the people? Because kings need all this to subject peoples. Go to Yoruba land, go to Bini, go to the Fulani Emirates. You would find still existing things that kings had. Before the British came, there were prisons, there were police, there were regular armies in Yoruba land. Among the Fulani and Hausa, Benin, even in the south of the Igbos, there were things that came close to emulating some of the things I mentioned. But in Igbo land, even these people that are bent on self-destruction knew that there were no prisons. If you committed the vilest of crimes, like manslaughter, you had to run into exile. There was no place to put you. Kings had those things. Even an imbecile should not have difficulties, seeing that the culture before the British came did not support kingship. If Igbos had kings, they would have had prisons, armies, and regular police before the British came. Kings need these things to suppress their subjects. With what we saw with our own eyes, if Igbos had kings, the kings of the Igbos would apparently be the only kings in the world who did not have power to even control their wives. That would be unique. That would be strange. The only place we had pretensions of kingship were west of the Niger, where the people copied the Bini. They copied the Bini. Before Igbos decided that kingship was bad for them, at least 2,000 years ago, were they aware that a human being could be a king over them? Of course, they were aware. That was why they came up with Igbo. We don't want kings again. That is the simple explanation. Sure, they were, but they here meant their ancient ancestors and not the Igbo people wandering around today and calling themselves Igbos. They are not the people that came up with Igbo. They are not the people that produced the Igbo language. They know nothing about Omenana. They didn't produce it. They didn't produce Onubu. They didn't produce Otaze. They did not produce anything. What they did at best was to destroy what was produced. They are not the people that came up with Igbo. The people that came up with Igbo produced Igbo because of something that happened. And arguably, the greatest modern thinker of the Igbos, Chinua Achebe, discussed this. According to him, I'll quote him, but not perfectly because I don't have what he said before me, but I remember it very well. He said that the people called Igbos now, he actually meant their ancestors, must have experienced the tyranny of kings at a very distant time and accordingly developed to hate kingship. He was explaining why the people had an aversion to the kings, why they hated kings. He said kings must have used them very badly in very ancient times, because that is what kings do. That is what kings do. If Igbos want to know what kings could do, they should go to Yoruba land. Kabiyesi means somebody you cannot see with your eyes. The kings own you. You are their property. Has there ever been a time in Igbo history that anybody owned anybody except if he bought him as a slave? I grew up knowing that the wealthiest man among the Igbos will talk. The poorest man among the Igbos will tell him, who are you? But these people are hell-bent on destroying everything because they want to be like their neighbors. When they eventually get these kings they want, these kings will sell what is remaining of their homelands and they will really become homeless. They are virtually homeless today, but they want to get there. Yeah, that very ancient time that the great Chinua Achebe was talking about was the Israelite times. The enemies of the Igbos, including some people masquerading as Igbos, don't want this part of the Igbo people to be mentioned. But I have lived beyond 4 decades. God has preserved me beyond 4 decades. And for what? To tell the Igbo people the truth. To try to understand Igbo history without looking very carefully at the Israelite epoch of the Igbos is a pure waste of time. I have brought down everybody who disregarded this in academia, in public discourse. I have proved that everybody that doubted it, I have proved that they are wrong. My last book, or my first book, after my doctoral dissertation, was on languages. I proved that you cannot even understand up to 90% of what the Hebrew Bible is saying, unless you know this language called Igbo language. There are nuances in the Hebrew Bible that only somebody that knows the Igbo language, knows Omenana, can understand. If there are Igbos who are not Israelites, they are parts of the mixed multitude who joined us when we left Egypt. Or there are people we accommodated in the past who want to destroy us because you cannot understand up to 90% of what the Hebrew Bible is saying unless you know the Igbo language. So how can the Igbos not be these? How can they not be Israelites? This truth was not suppressed, even though attempts were made at all levels to suppress it. Nincompoops and idiots cannot suppress it. And by the way, what is the value of the Israelite identity? It has not given me an easy life. And my people regard having money today as evidence of luck. I'm one of the poorest people in the world, but I'm a prophet. And the job of the prophet is to save the people. That is why I keep on saying the truth. And for the Igbo people themselves, what has their being from ancient Israel earned them? The state of Israel does them no favors, even though they helped the Israelis. When the great Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and Dr. Michael Opara were in power, we helped Israelis. The state of Israel at present doesn't see differences between us and other Nigerians. So, being Israelite is not for material benefit to us, but there are spiritual benefits. It helps us to be closer. It helps us to fear the fear of Isaac, who is the ultimate protector. As I headed into one of the synagogues I visited yesterday, being the prophet I am, something occurred to me. The Igbos believe that every illness has a spiritual dimension. And then I thought, look at the world. Every second, everybody breathes in millions of bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Who stops even one of these things from making you sick every day? Which means all these are our protection. All these are our armies. All these our weapons are not really what are protecting us. What is protecting us, or who is protecting us is Chukwu. So, being an Israelite brings you nearer to God. And this is what the enemies of the Igbos don't want. They want them to disregard their Israelite heritage, disregard authentic Omenana, so that they will perish. And I repeat, some of those people distracting them today can pass for Igbos. They were born in the southeast of Nigeria, but they hate the Igbo people. But ultimately, they will discover the errors of their ways. I don't want people to share Igbo history that disregards the Israelite epoch with me, because I value time more than money. Whatever you discuss as Igbo history that does not recognize the Israelite epoch of the Igbos is a waste of time. Don't share them with me. If you are interested in nonsense, read them, digest them, run with them, but don't share them with me. I want to spend all my life giving the Igbo people back their history so that these mistakes will stop. In the territory called Nigeria, the Igbos are the only people who have suffered genocide 2 times. I'm not one of those that believe that genocides, that we should become, that we should play victims. By the way, nobody is interested in listening to our story. I want the genocides to stop. I want the mistreatment of the Igbos to stop. And I don't want to go to the world stage and cry, oh, we are victims of genocide, we are victims of this, we are victims of that. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to benefit from talking about it. What I want is for it to stop. And the only way it can stop is Igbos